My wood pellet boiler has broken down, and this being Scotland, it'll take 2 or 3 months to get it fixed. In the meantime, I have a ton of pellets in the garage, so thought I would try the useful Sweden pellet basket in the wood stove in the living room and hopefully save money on buying more logs for those chillier Highland summer evenings. This video is effectively in 2 parts. The first part looks at using the pellet tray as advertised with different stove settings, and the results were underwhelming. In the second part, I still use the pellet tray components but not in basket form, and the results were excellent. My wood stove is a 7 kilowatt MCZ Nogel. The pellet basket is well made of quality steel and was easy to fit together. I tried the pellet basket at 3 ventilation settings, fully open, half open and minimum, and compared these with my usual log and briquette setup. For logs and briquettes, I typically start the burn with any combination of 3 of these, which weigh around 4.5 kilos in total, and used log barn wood and wax fire starters. After full ventilation for 10 minutes, I turn the stove down to minimum for the rest of the burn. At 45 minutes, the stovetop is at a useful temperature, and the most efficient of the stove fans starts, with the second stove fan starting at about 60 minutes. After 2 hours, the best of the burn is over, but the stove is comfortably still pushing out heat after 2.5, maybe 3 hours. The useful Sweden pellet basket held just less than 3 kilos of pellets. I simply laid log barn fire starters on top of the pellets, and this seemed to work. In all cases, the fire descended through the pellets in the basket as time went by. My first attempt with pellets was following the same approach as for the logs and briquettes, 10 minutes on full ventilation and then the rest of the time on minimum. The result was not great. The stovetop temperature didn't get above yellow, and the more efficient stove fan started rotating laconically at 100 minutes to little effect. The pellets burnt out after 130 minutes, and the stove didn't really affect the temperature in the room. In the second attempt, I kept the ventilation on fully open for 30 minutes and then reduced it to half. Bizarrely, the stovetop never got hot enough to turn the fans, and the burn was all over after 120 minutes. In the third test, I left the ventilation on full for the duration of the burn. The pellets burned faster and hotter for 100 minutes, with the fans starting at around 70 minutes, but the stovetop temperature only nudged into the useful red zone briefly. I did then add a briquette into the pellet tray, and all was good for another hour. So for me, using the useful Sweden pellet basket is not really a viable alternative. As it is a 7 kilowatt stove, this is perhaps not surprising. It is relatively big and designed for much higher wood mass than the pellet basket can contain. This comparison with my usual logs and briquettes setup was not really fair based on the mass of wood, so I decided to deconstruct the pellet basket and use it as a secondary grate. I started the burn with around 3.75 kilos of pellets, again using the log barn fire starters. I set the ventilation at fully open for the first 15 minutes, then at half ventilation for 15 minutes before turning it down to minimum ventilation for the rest of the burn. I added the last 750 grams of pellets after 100 minutes to one side of the burning pellets. The more efficient fan started at 60 minutes and the second fan at 75 minutes, confirming the top plate of the stove had reached optimal temperature. After 3 hours, the stove was still giving off robust heat, and I could have added more pellets. So, did I need to buy a pellet basket, or would a piece of perforated steel acting as a secondary grate have done the job? If I give that option a try, I'll post a follow-up video. The useful Sweden pellet basket might well be relegated to the camper van for use as a mobile fire pit, because it works up to a point, just not in my 7 kilowatt stove. It might work well in a smaller stove, but unfortunately it was not really useful in mine. It's all good.